No one saw the dog at first, not really. People kept hurrying through the hospital, chasing their own emergencies, heads down, eyes glazed, thinking about who they might lose or what they had already lost. Nobody even wondered why a big German shepherd was sitting, tense as a drawn bow, right in front of the elevator on the third floor of St. Mary's. Maybe it just blended in with the controlled chaos of hospital life. Scrubs flashing past, parents whispering comfort, a swirl of motion and noise. But that dog, he wasn't moving for anyone, and honestly, you'd have to be half asleep not to feel something electric in the air the way he just sat there. Eyes locked on those silver doors like they held a secret only he understood. Some people tried to get him to budge, calling softly, waving treats, making those embarrassing smooching sounds people think animals love. He didn't blink. When a nurse finally reached for his collar, he let out this sharp, almost offended bark. The kind that tells you, not now, not ever. And suddenly, things felt different. Security showed up, hands on hips, radios buzzing, ready to solve whatever dog situation this was. But even they hesitated when they met those eyes. That's when the whole story started to unravel. See, the dog's name was Thor. He was a K9, a partner in the local police department, trained in all the hard stuff: search, rescue, detection. But that day, he was off duty. He'd come with Officer Megan Rhodes, who'd stopped in for just a few minutes to see her sister's new baby. Thor always waited outside the neonatal unit, head on his paws, tail giving a friendly thump every so often. But this time, something yanked him up and pulled him toward the elevators, like he heard a call nobody else did. He left his usual spot without a sound, and the only witness was a security camera, catching him walk with purpose straight to elevator 3, planting himself in front of it like a stone monument. No one else noticed, but Thor did. And when Megan came out, expecting her partner to be snoozing in the corner, all she found was empty linoleum and a growing murmur down the hall. She heard her name, rushed over, heart doing gymnastics, and there was Thor, statue still, blocking the elevator. She tried to call him. He glanced back at her, then back at the doors, like he was trying to tell her something. "What's wrong, buddy?" she whispered, kneeling beside him just as the elevator opened again. And there it was, a stroller, alone, right in the center. Not a soul in sight. Inside, a baby, no older than 1, cheeks flushed, holding a crumpled scrap of paper in his fist. The silence that followed was suffocating. Megan felt her lungs stop working. Nurses swarmed, voices trembling as they checked the baby, alive but cold. Eyes big as questions. No hospital band. No parent. Just that note, which someone finally unfolded with shaking hands. Red ink. Shaky writing. "Please don't take him from here. I had no other choice. His name is Micah. He has a heart defect and needs surgery. I can't afford it. Maybe someone kind will save him." Everything just stopped. A nurse burst into tears, and a doctor quietly left the scene, hand covering his mouth. And Thor, he just stayed put, watching the baby like he'd known all along, like he was the only one who could keep Micah safe until help came. The security team got to work, rewinding the footage. There it was, a young woman in a hoodie, gaunt and tired, pushing the stroller in, kissing her son's head, then walking out the doors and vanishing into a stairwell. Not a clear shot of her face. Not a clue left behind except for the kind of heartbreak you feel even through a grainy video. What nobody expected was what the cameras showed next. Thor, pausing by the elevator, sniffing the air, then just stopping, as if something in that small, empty stroller called him louder than any command ever could. Megan reached out, resting her hand on his broad head, and realized she'd never really known what loyalty meant until that moment. She'd trusted Thor on the streets, in the worst corners of the city, but this was something else, a kind of sixth sense. Or maybe just the purest form of goodness left in a world that sometimes forgets how to care. Micah was admitted as a patient. The doctors said his condition was bad, but fixable, a tiny hole in his heart, the kind that would only get worse without help. But with surgery, he could make it. He could really make it. That night, Megan sat in her car in the hospital parking lot, Thor stretched out in the back seat, finally relaxed. She stared at the city lights and whispered, "You saved him, you really did." And she thought about Micah's mother, the kind of choice she'd had to make, and how sometimes love doesn't look the way we expect. Sometimes it means walking away. Word spread fast. Thor wasn't just hospital gossip anymore. He was a headline. Local news called him a hero, donations poured in for Micah's surgery, and the whole town started watching, waiting, hoping for a happy ending. In just a few days, there was enough money not only for surgery, but for a new start, recovery, maybe a family, maybe a second chance. Megan made her decision fast. Thor had already chosen, and she just followed his lead. She signed the papers to foster Micah, promising him a home, a protector, and maybe, just maybe, a real shot at a future. Weeks later, after the surgery, you could find them every morning in the park, Micah in his stroller, cheeks round and rosy, giggling at the way Thor tried to chase pigeons, but never strayed more than a step from his side. People stopped to watch, some wiping away tears, some just offering a smile. All of them remembering that day in the hospital. What happened there wasn't about abandonment, or even just a mother's desperation. It was about what can happen when kindness stands guard. Silent and steady, refusing to look away. It's wild, isn't it? That in a world that can feel so cold, a dog could teach us all a lesson in loyalty and love. That a baby left behind could bring out the best in everyone. A nurse, a cop, a stranger with $5 to spare. Maybe we're all just looking for a sign that good still exists, and that it'll show up when we need it most. So here's what I want to know. If you'd found Micah that day, what would you have done? Have you ever seen an animal show a kind of compassion that left you speechless? Drop your stories in the comments. Let's talk about what's right, what's wrong, and where we draw the lines on love and second chances. And if this story moved you, stick around, share, subscribe, and help us keep these stories alive. Because sometimes the heroes don't wear capes or badges. Sometimes they just sit quietly, waiting by an elevator, until someone needs them most. You'd think that after all that, the drama, the headlines, the outpouring of love, things would slow down, return to normal. But nothing about Micah's story ever felt normal again. At least not for the people whose lives he touched, and definitely not for Megan or Thor. Because once you're part of something like that, even if you try to go back to routine, the world just looks different. You notice things you never did before. A father who squeezes his daughter's hand a little tighter, a nurse who lingers just a second longer in the NICU. The way Thor's ears perk up every time a baby cries. The day after Micah's surgery, Megan found herself sitting by his hospital bed, sunlight streaming through blinds. That antiseptic smell fading beneath the gentle hum of a city waking up. She watched the tiny rise and fall of his chest, those impossibly small fingers wrapped around Thor's ear. She'd never seen the big dog so patient, so gentle, like he understood Micah's world had been held together by threads, and now it was his job to guard every last one of them. But life, as it tends to, kept moving. Child services did their check-ins, sometimes with a smile, sometimes with a clipboard full of doubts. The hospital staff still talked about that day, sometimes in hushed voices, sometimes laughing about how Thor ran the third floor. People started visiting, bringing clothes, toys, little tokens of hope. One woman even left behind a quilt, stitched with the words, "You are loved, little Lionheart." Megan hung it above Micah's bed, thinking about the woman who'd left her son behind, hoping, maybe praying, that somehow she'd hear her child was safe. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after the surgery, something happened that none of them expected. Megan had just finished a shift, exhaustion etched deep in her bones, and was pushing Micah through the hospital garden, Thor padding along like a silent shadow. She heard someone call out, soft, shaky, almost scared, "Excuse me, is that Micah?" She turned. There stood a young woman, hair pulled into a messy bun, hoodie pulled low, hands trembling. Her eyes were the same deep brown as Micah's, and in that moment, Megan just knew. She didn't run or scream or call for security. She simply knelt, pulled Micah closer, and waited. The woman stepped forward, tears already streaming, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I didn't want to leave him, you know. I ran out of options." Megan listened, no judgment, just letting the silence stretch until it hurt. Thor stood between them, not growling, not barking, just watching, as if weighing her soul with those ancient eyes. "I tried every charity, every hotline, every favor I could think of," the woman said. "But doors closed. I thought maybe someone else could do what I couldn't." She reached for Micah, then stopped, hands shaking too much to trust herself. Is he okay? Megan nodded. He's better than okay. He's loved. He's safe. And in that instant, the world seemed to pause. Three souls suspended between heartbreak and hope, with a dog holding the whole thing together. They sat on a bench. The woman told her story: a job lost, a mountain of bills, a heart condition no one could fix without insurance. She talked about nights spent hungry, days spent begging for help. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said, eyes shining with something fierce. "I just needed to know he was still alive." Megan didn't have answers, but she offered what she could: a listening ear, a shoulder, a promise that Micah would never be just another lost child in the system. Thor rested his head in the woman's lap, like he could sense the years of pain coiled inside her. Maybe he could. He always seemed to know things humans couldn't say. And here's the twist. Child services arrived, all stern faces and official voices. The law didn't have space for the messiness of love and desperation. There was paperwork, questions, the looming threat of charges. But something unexpected happened. The nurse who'd first found Micah, the doctor who'd operated on him, even the janitor from the night shift, they showed up, too. They spoke up, not just for Micah, but for his mother. They told the officials about a community coming together, about kindness, about a system that sometimes fails the very people who need it most. It didn't solve everything. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with hearings and home visits, therapy and trust building. But for the first time, Micah's mother didn't have to fight alone. She had an ally in Megan, in Thor, and in every stranger who'd shed a tear for a baby left behind. Weeks passed. The garden became their meeting spot. Some afternoons, Megan would bring both Micah and his mom, slowly, carefully, rebuilding what life had tried so hard to take. Sometimes they'd just sit in silence, watching Thor chase sunlight across the grass, and sometimes they'd talk, voices breaking and healing all at once. The city kept watching, waiting for its next story. But for those who knew, the real ending was quieter, less about headlines, more about healing. And one evening, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples and gold, Megan watched Thor walk beside Micah's stroller, his mother at their side. She realized sometimes heroes just show up, on four paws, with a gentle nudge, or in the simple act of not giving up on someone who needs you most. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe second chances are real, even when the law says otherwise? Where do we draw the line between right and wrong, love and abandonment? Drop your thoughts below. And if this story touched you, don't forget to share, subscribe, and keep the light burning for stories that remind us kindness still matters, even when no one's watching.